Kane, you ready? Good.
Yeah.
Call the meeting to order. First order of business is roll call.
Andy Bacon.
Here.
Dave Huntoon. Here. Olin Gambrell.
Here.
Jim Miller.
Here.
Eric Curtin here. Tom Heaney.
Here.
Tom Silvera. Here.
In the absence of Mr. Souza, Mr. Huntoon, you'll be voting this evening?
Sure.
Next order of business is adoption of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Next order of business are summary cases. Summary cases are those cases that have minimal relief requested. We're going to read them in, then we're going to ask if anyone in the audience is here to object to them. If there is an objection, we're going to place them at the end of the calendar. Otherwise, we're going to vote on both the summary cases in one. Mr. Curtin, if you can read the first case.
Petition of Mark Damiani for a variance from section 603, 70, and 701 to allow a 24 by 47 and a half garage addition with an unfinished bonus room with right side setback of 20 feet 6 inches where 30 feet is required. Said real estate is located at 71 Lighthouse View Drive, further identified as lot 845, tax assessors plat 120.
Is there anyone here that would like to object to that case? Okay, read the next case.
Petition of Catherine Brennan for variance of section 603 and 701 to construct a 10 by 12 deck with a rear yard setback of 50 feet, where 60 is required. Said real estate is located on 1021 Wapping Road and further identified as lot 4 on tax assessors plat 128.
Is there anyone here that would like to object to that case? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to accept the summary cases.
I'll make a motion to accept the summary cases.
Second. Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Now we'll go on to our first full hearing. We're going to run through the hearings, the petitions, and ask if anyone would like a continuance, and then we'll come back. So we'll go ahead, Mr.
Petition of Atlantic Beach Suites LLC by the attorney David Martland.
Mr. Martland?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Board.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board. How are you? James Callahan for a number of neighbors and abutters. I sent a letter to Mr. Kane requesting a continuance of this matter. I mentioned that possibility last meeting. We could reschedule it to August 27th. I think we could certainly proceed at that point.
Okay, are you good with that, Mr. Martland?
That's fine with me.
Okay. We'll continue to the, what's the
Mr.
date?
Chairman, do you want to make sure that, I know there were only five members that heard it last time will be available that date, if we could confirm that.
Mr. Martland, you were concerned about that at the last meeting. I don't know who was on that.
Yeah, so I believe the chairman, Mr. Souza, Mr. Curtin, Mr. Gambrell were on it, along with Mr. Bacon, and I believe Mr. Silvera may have been here. Or not.
I was on it. Is it the hotel? Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we just need to make sure we have 5 of those.
Well, you need to make sure you have the five who heard the case previously.
Yeah.
For next meeting.
Same five need to
Right.
be here at that next meeting, so.
Right.
But wasn't there 6 people on the thing, or was it just 5?
No, there's,
Susan was here too.
Okay.
So five of those, if there were 6 who heard it previously, at least 5 of them have to be here at the next meeting.
Next month. So right now, we're going to accept your continuance.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a recommendation that Jack get the roll call from that meeting? You have it in your folder. You have it in the Atlantic Beach Suites folder, who was here that evening. And we'll just poll the members according to that.
I was the only one.
Olin, Jim, Chris Souza, Eric Curtin, Tom.
I was absent.
You were absent?
Yep.
Tom Souza was here and Andy Bacon was here, so we'll be fine. Your continuance is granted.
Thank you.
So that's August 27th.
Right, August 27th. Next case?
Petition of 86 West Main LLC and Casey Smith for a special use permit from section 602 to allow a cryotherapy services business and physical therapy
Okay.
practice.
We're not reading them into the record yet, we're just checking to see
Yeah,
if they're
just-
here and
okay,
ready to
sorry.
proceed. And you missed Atlantic Beach Suites LLC.
They're-
Yeah,
okay.
that's a separate petition from Atlantic Beach Suites too.
Yeah, I would request a 2-month continuance. We've had to revise the floor plans in connection with that petition, which is the hotel that fronts on Aquidneck Avenue, to address some parking issues. So I would request a 2-month continuance of that matter.
September 24th, Mr. Chairman?
Yep. Okay, we'll grant that.
Thank you.
Okay. So the petition of 86 West Main LLC, and Casey Smith, you're here?
We're ready to hear.
Okay.
Petition of Andrew and Julie Nicoletta. ABC Development LLC, and the Christian Congregation. You're here. Petition of R. Payson Fugit and their attorney Sean Bouchard.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Sean Bouchard for the applicant. There was an issue with the advertisement. There was actually an abutter who was not listed on the original notice, so we would ask for a 1-month continuance in order to renotice this matter.
August 27th?
Yep. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Petition of Aquidneck Avenue Equities LLC.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, David Martland. I'd request a continuance to the August meeting. My witness is unavailable this evening, but will be available for August.
Okay.
Thank you.
Petition of Philip M. Bonet by Sean Bouchard. Okay. And petition of Kevin Kirby.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the Kirby petition is before the Conservation Commission and Planning Board for advisory opinions. It's in Zone 1, so that would need a continuance to August 27th.
Mr. Kirby, you good with that?
Yeah, I'd like to request a continuance. I'm supposed to meet with the planning board next week.
Okay, so we're going to continue to August 27th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so our first hearing is going to be,
102 West Main?
yep,
No, 86 West Main.
86 West Main.
Okay, petition of 86 West Main LLC and Casey Smith for a special use permit from section 602 to allow a cryotherapy services business and physical therapy practice. Said real estate is located at 102 West Main Road and further identified as lot 50 in the tax district plat 108.
Hi, good evening.
Hold on one second. Raise your right
sorry.
hand, please.
Yep.
Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
State your name and address for the record.
Casey Smith, 51 Bliss Mine Moore Road, Newport, Rhode Island.
And the gentleman to your right, is he going to speak?
Yes.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth, nothing
Yes.
but the truth?
Yes.
State your name and address for the record,
Matthew Sweeney,
and your address.
as home address.
Where do you live?
39 Kingston Ave, Apartment A, Newport, Rhode
Okay.
Island.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony this evening will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
Nick Sangenario, 51 Blissmont Road, Newport.
Okay, thank you. If you can tell us a little bit about your petition?
Sure. As I said before, my name is Casey Smith. I'm co-owner of Island Wellness, which is a veteran-owned holistic wellness center currently located at 102 West Main Road in Middletown. This evening, we are seeking special use permits for cryotherapy and physical therapy services at this location of 102 West Main Road. We wanted to educate you this evening a little bit about what cryotherapy is, the benefits, and how it will improve the quality of life in Middletown. Cryotherapy, by basic definition, is a cold therapy. Cryo means cold. We provide this therapy through the use of a cold sauna or a cryosauna. Our cryosauna is a top-of-the-line CE certified, FDA registered as a non-medical device. The manufacturer of our sauna is Space Cabin, and they've been manufacturing these cryosaunas for 15 years. They also have a proven track record for safety. We've personally run over 3,500 sessions without any issues on this machine. I'd like to show you a brief clip explaining about cryotherapy. It was featured on Dr. Oz. Dr. Mehmet Oz is a nationally recognized healthcare specialist. He's bringing awareness to health and wellness fields through national television. There's also a short clip on the back end of this that explains how liquid nitrogen actually works.
Will the sound work, or do I need to do something?
And I don't know what you have to bring. The sound person's in the back.
Oh, honey, the computer sound is off. See the little speaker on the bottom? That might help you out. There we go. I want to start over.
Right over here is a cryosauna. It's got liquid nitrogen that's released into the chamber to cool temperatures to all parts of our body. It's something we've used for a long time, right? Maybe we may try this type of version, an ice pack. Imagine if you grow it. Right over here is a cryosauna. It's got liquid nitrogen that's released into the chamber to cool down the body, to reduce the inflammation and the pain. So audience, what do you think? Does it help? Or does it just help? Young James. They are split. They are split. All right. Yes, sir. In-house. New expanding forms of cold therapy that are very helpful for folks who have debilitating pain and inflammation. Let me show you one. Put animation. What happens when you have pain and why clearly it makes a difference. So let's say you're exercising and you sprain your knee, right? You've got aches and pains inside of that knee. And what ends up happening when the surface is the blood vessels over the painful limb begin to swell. And as those vessels swell a little bit, they'll release chemicals. And the tissue underneath next to it get influenced by these red blood cells that speak across and release chemicals that cause inflammation, irritation, throws, scratching feeling. Now that swelling can be addressed if you cool the joint. When you cool the joint, you shrink the blood vessels. And by shrinking the blood vessels, when they get smaller, it's harder for the white blood cells to escape. You have less swelling there for the tissue around it, less chemicals released into the joint space, and less aches and pains overall. It also affects the nerves. Because the nerves get cold, they stop sensing pain, and then it turns to the post-labor body. You'll sense that it's going out.
Short clip about liquid nitrogen.
So granting the approval for special use for cryotherapy and physical therapy at this location will not result in conditions admissible to the public health, safety, and welfare. We at Island Wellness aim to provide safe, holistic wellness to the Aquidneck Island community. We have clientele from all over New England with over 900 clients in our system and over 3,500 whole body cryo sessions run in a year's time. To quote Dr. Kelsey Heston, one of our clients, Island Wellness provides a resource for people to become proactive and responsible for their health and wellness, which is a shift in our healthcare system, which is needed. A transition from sick care to natural wellness will save money and improve the quality of life of members of this community. The granting of such approval will not substantially or permanently injure the appropriate use of the property in the surrounding area or zoning district. There will be no permanent changes made to the property for the cryosauna. It simply plugs into the wall and connects to the tanks with a flexible hose, which are stored safely outside. Also, according to real estate companies, simply investing in commercial real estate in close proximity to designated wellness companies can drive profitable for landlords. By allowing our holistic wellness center in Middletown, we're not only helping the community by providing access to wellness, but we're also helping other community businesses. Many businesses are starting to become more health and wellness conscious by providing programs to their staff and partnering with centers just like ours. Thank you.
The reason why you're here with a special use permit is unique to what you're doing. It doesn't fit within our zoning code, and so the zoning official, Mr. Kane, has at his discretion the ability to assign it to a special use permit. Then there's 5 criteria that we have to go through to make sure we understand that. If you read the preamble to that, it tells us that the petitioner should put on expert testimony, which you've done partially that, but there are concerns with, the nitrogen has an MSDS sheet. There's, I understand the Leidenfrost effect. I used to do a physics is fun show when I was in college, and we used to do it with lead. So I understand Leidenfrost, but there have been cases of injuries within cryosaunas, not a lot, but there have been because of exposure. So some of the questions I have is what are you doing as far as safety?
So in terms of safety, we've actually operated now for over a year's time. All of our clients do read a waiver, and we go over all of the safety precautions that they have to do. During the 3-minute session, they must wear slippers and gloves. They must be completely dry. All of our employees are also trained on the same training video that we are ourselves from the manufacturer of the machine. And over a year's time, we haven't had any kind of safety concerns for our clients. We do limit them. Some centers allow you to do more than 1 cryotherapy session a day. We don't allow that for safety concerns. Safety is definitely first and foremost with my clients. A lot of them have other health issues as well, like cancer or MS or things like that. I do not want to put anyone in danger.
Are you required to be certified by the state?
No, so there are no, cryotherapy is not an FDA certified treatment. Our machine is actually coded as it's registered as the FDA as non-medical device. So there is no medical training per the state or anything like that, but we are extensively trained from the manufacturer.
And the state definitely knows about us because we dealt with them for about 3 months, just ensuring that there was no permits or anything. And in the end, they said everything was good to go.
Did you obtain any kind of certification from them, or?
There's no certification from the state.
It's so
or
new.
from the government, and it's non-medical. The only certifications are from the companies that sell the machines.
Where's your practice now?
It's at 102 West Main Road in Middletown.
Currently is, and where
We currently are located there. We moved from 493 Broadway, I'm sorry, in Newport. Yes, we were. They had us zoned under a retail zone, and they classified us as a retail business, and we did operate there for over a year, where we serviced a majority of our clients and won a Best of Newport award.
What do you have in place to protect against the nitrogen? I understand the slippers and the robes, but what about the air quality? Because that's the problem with nitrogen, right? Above us are sprinkler systems that are charged with nitrogen, not liquid nitrogen, nitrogen. You're dealing with liquid nitrogen,
Correct.
which is a liquid that then expands to a gas.
Correct.
And literally a mouthful of liquid hydrogen is enough, liquid nitrogen is enough to take the air out of this room. So what do you have in place for that?
So the tanks will be stored outside. They have a pressure relief. They only get up to 22 psi. They have a pressure relief valve. They have the normal pressure valves that if a tank gets too pressurized, it would blow. But
The
because they're outside, if anything were to happen there, it's obviously not going to displace the air there.
Yeah.
The machine itself is built in with all the safety mechanisms. That's why it's CE certified, and I mean, they've been doing it for 15 years. I don't know of any way that the hose would be able to throw in that much nitrogen into the building. it's all kept outside.
And our machine is also placed directly next to 3 large windows for ventilation as well. The machine is equipped with mechanical ventilation in this machine as well. Clients are
What do you
raised
mean
up
by
to-
mechanical ventilation?
So
Explain
the
that.
cryosauna itself has a ventilation system within it.
So
When
what-
it sucks out the nitrogen.
There's a drying
Uh,
cycle at the end of each session, which
so it
is
takes
30
any
seconds.
exit from the room?
It
Yeah.
takes out any excess nitrogen that's left in the coil that was trying to make its way to the sauna.
In the absence of state regulation, we can only go and look at what's out there. And so unfortunately, I had to do a lot of reading on your technique. And Utah, which experienced the only death from cryotherapy, put out, I think it's 9 or 10 steps. Have you looked into any of those steps, and are you going to incorporate them?
I am.
Some of them you
yeah.
talked about.
No, I actually I am versed in that situation. I was an employee who worked at a
After
cryotherapy
hours.
place after hours. She was unsupervised. That's actually the #1 rule. No one is using this machine by themselves. That is not an opportunity. It's actually not even a possibility to turn the machine on while you're in it alone. So ours is extremely safe, but I have seen research regarding that, and we take great care in all of those
Do
types
you have
of
any
things.
sensors in the room that protects the public? That,
No.
because that's one thing that Utah makes a requirement, that you have a nitrogen sensor.
If necessary, with the approval of the board, we can install necessary sensors.
I do have an oxygen monitor. It's not currently installed at this location, but we do have it on hand. It actually doesn't even, it's a self-contained unit that would beep if the concentration got low. I don't know, it's never really,
Yeah. but
with the
that's-
tanks being outside, there's cryotherapy places that keep multiple tanks right inside. We've gone to them at a dentist office.
Directly next to the
Having
machine.
it outside, I feel very safe. 22 PSI, it barely pushes the liquid into the machine. Sometimes it's like not enough pressure. And instantly if anything's wrong. You'll see vapors coming, you'll hear it. But the machine's very high tech, and we feel very safe about it.
But we have to make sure it's safe for the public, right? So saying that you feel like it's safe,
Well,
and then I can
obviously,
all
we're
I
gonna
can
be
do
in
is read
compliance
what
with-
I've read.
I'm sorry.
I can only read what's out there, and it's come from other industries where they use nitrogen, where they call it a silent killer. So, OSHA has a whole list of things.
It will be regulated by the fire department.
Well, the fire department is one thing, but, OSHA, you're dealing with nitrogen in a contained space, right? Agreed?
Correct.
It will be in
Correct.
accordance with the NFPA, and OSHA and all
I don't know what
that.
NFPA is.
National Fire
Protection
It's the one that I was referred to by the fire marshal.
So in the training that they give you, do they train you to look for asphyxiation and things like that?
Yes.
Because that would be my concern, is that nitrogen's gonna get loose in the environment, not outside, it's not gonna have any problem outside, but inside in the building.
Mhm.
Because it is liquid, it doesn't require a lot to evacuate the oxygen. So that's my concern
Right.
personally.
So I know there are calculations which will be done. We do need to be certified by the fire marshal. They go through just calculations of displacement of air, how much volume the liquid is going to turn into gas, how many cubic feet the room is, what is
Right.
the required ventilation. All of that has to be into place for this machine. Fire Marshal McCall is on top of all of that.
Marissa, how do we move forward with the absence of state regulation regarding this? I mean,
It is not a regulated substance by DEM. I believe that's what you're referring to.
Mhm.
The only time the DEM would get involved if there were some sort of release. It is, however, regulated. It's still a substance that the federal government regulates. And the fire department does weigh in on certain elements of the procedure, but in the absence of state regulation, you would be hard pressed to figure out how the product needs to be maintained. Thanks.
so it's within our justification to allow this.
you'd be looking to the applicant to provide information on what it is exactly that the fire department and OSHA requires.
Do you have that information for us?
So it's a long list. It's chapter 63 of the NFPA Volume 1, and it goes through quite a few pages. There's a number of things. It has to be secured outside the building.
So that's what I was gonna say, why don't you, the whole concern has to do with the nitrogen itself. So why don't you look at that long list there and tell us, in terms of the measures that you're taking, to allay the concern about the outside storage, and then once the gas is introduced in the room, the kinds of measures that you can take and will take based on what you're being told in order to ensure that the concern, the health concern that the board is voicing are being addressed.
Okay.
So we're trying to help you here, that we just need to hear those things.
Right. What, the exact build-out of it?
No, for example, outside storage, there's got to be some sort of surface that it has to be placed on, cage that it may have to be in, those kinds of things for the outside storage safety measures that you're addressing. We have no idea, just based on your petition here, whether any of that's being met. Now, we heard what you said, that in order for the fire marshal to help you, or excuse me, approve that, you have to meet those things. That's all we're asking is what kinds of things that you're aware of that you have to do in order to get the inspection outside and inside approved.
We have to build an enclosure to secure the tanks so no one else can get to them. It also can't be in danger of getting hit by a vehicle. It has to be ventilated. It can't be within 10 feet of the exits, 1 foot from a window or any hole in the wall. I mean, like I said, there's a number of things, but that is the most majority of it. Also, a lot of they say natural ventilation is enough for that quantity, but we will have the machine going directly vented outside.
And then a sensor that you were talking about putting inside the room.
Yeah, we'll install that sensor.
And how does that machine work to evacuate the contents? Whether you have a
So
sensor?
liquid comes up to the machine, and then the machine vaporizes it. And the vapor swirls down the chamber around the person, and then the machine sucks it out and right out the window. And then when you're done, it does a whole drying cycle and make sure everything's been sucked out.
There is a red emergency stop button as well located right above the center panel that will shut all electricity, anything off to the machine, and close all vents upon hitting it. So if there was an emergency situation, such as the hose broke or nitrogen began leaking or something happened with the chamber, we have the power to hit that button at any time.
You have certain certifications from the Middletown Fire Department that you have to meet?
That we have to meet.
Correct, and we are working on them with Fire Marshal McCall.
There's currently, we're undergoing an issue because we hired a nitrogen company and they came and installed a tank without the proper authorities. So that was, our solution was this professional gas company's tank that they installed. We're waiting for them to remove it. This will be contingent upon it being removed. Once that is removed, we can finally build our structure into place, and the fire department will sign off on it, and then we can start getting our nitrogen.
Marissa, can we make our approval contingent on the fire marshal's approval of their safety plan as well as their operating procedures?
Yes, you can make an approval contingent.
And on Jack clearing them for, I understand the issues with the tank, but my feeling is you have a tank that shouldn't be there right now.
Right.
We're gonna approve you tonight. If we do, we wanna put conditions in that you're gonna
I understand.
you're gonna make our zoning official happy, that, you're gonna meet with the fire marshal and they're gonna sign off. If they don't sign off, then our approval's gonna be no.
I totally understand.
How many of these are there statewide?
So there's another cryosauna in Cranston. It is located in a fitness gym. It's not a wellness center such as our own. Nationwide, over 500.
So
So
the only
over
one in Rhode
700, I'm
Island is
sorry.
in Cranston, and how long has it been in operation?
It was open before our operation was established. We actually did some research based on what they were doing. I don't know when they were officially opened, though. So over a year.
Oh, definitely. It's 2 or 3 years.
You've been doing this?
We've been doing
You've
this,
been
yes. Oh, yes, for over a year
You're doing
in
it
Newport.
In Newport?
Yep.
And why are you leaving the Newport location?
We wanted to expand our center. We wanted to offer more things. We grew our clientele. We were hoping to expand to have a great wellness center in Middletown. Unfortunately, in Newport, that property didn't arise, and one did in Middletown.
What's the expected timeline for the completion of all the fire department's requirements and inspections?
The problem that we've been having right now is not, the company not cooperating as far as removing the tank. So I don't have a solid date on that.
I mean,
That's a big issue.
Can I, excuse me, maybe just to get through
Okay,
this,
yeah.
clarify this. Approximately a month and a half ago, say 6 weeks ago, it came to the attention of the fire marshal and myself that there was a nitrogen tank installed at 102 West Main Road. Fire department discovered the fact that there was a business open there, but they were doing a routine, what they call pre-inspection. I don't want to speak for the fire marshal, but just trying to get sort of a chain of events that occurred here. We went to the site, did an inspection, discussed with the business, type of business that it was, what the operation entailed. I went back and did my research, determined 2 different things. That number one, there had been no permits applied for, which would have needed a building permit and a mechanical permit to install the pad that supports the tank and the tank itself. We had no permit applications in place for it. And at that, it would have violated the setback, so the permits would have been denied if they were applied for. So there would have been a variance request along with the special use permit. Subsequent to that, the fire marshal performed an inspection of the building, being that the fire code's more stringent than the building code because there technically at that point was no change of use in the building. It came under the heading of a mercantile retail sort of a use. Building codes have some grandfathering allowed. Fire marshal's code does not. So he performed an inspection of the building, and now they're working on correcting whatever violations may be in place. The issue with the tank is right now that American Gas Products that installed the tank under contract with Island Wellness has agreed to remove the tank. I spoke with them about a week ago, and they're going to remove the tank. But at the present time, the tank is there, constitutes a violation, and they're currently under notice of violation.
So they're gonna remove the tank?
The tank has to be removed, yes, because it's too close to the property line.
Is the tank secured? I mean, is there a fence around it now?
It's been emptied, so the way I understand it right now, it's safe the way it sits, but it's not properly guarded. If a vehicle were to strike it or something, it would probably, fall over, basically. So it does present an issue. It does need to be removed, and they're aware of that. Like I said, I spoke with a representative from the gas company, and they are in the process of getting it out of there.
Jack is correct, and I just do want to clarify, we went with this company assuming that they were professionals, and that by us having a professional gas company install this, we were taking the safest route. Unfortunately, that did not actually end up being what the case was. They did not properly get permits, they did not properly go about their job as professionals. So we did fall victim to that, but we have been working with Jack and the fire marshal diligently to get this off of our property.
You'd think they'd know to secure the tank with a fence, if they're professional.
They didn't know much.
The
It sounds
violations were knowingly caused by you.
Correct.
Correct.
Is that what I'm hearing, Jack?
Marissa, one last question. We approve special use permits, Jack, specifically like when we've done the fireworks and we've had them come back after a year as a check and a balance to make sure there's no issue. Would there be a problem doing that in this case if we grant the special use contingent on everything else being taken care of, if we make them come back in 1 year? Only because what if there's an issue in the year?
I just think this is a little bit different than someone setting up a tent for temporary sales once a year. to putting a time limit on the duration of the special use permit. You'd be essentially asking them to full-on operate their business subject to a review in 1 year, where you may say,
Right.
no. I think
We do,
that's.
we do that with people though, that do other things, massage massage therapists, and we've had that discussion before.
And besides all of that, you still have to make a determination that the application, as it sits before you, meets Section 902. So you can condition it after you reach the opinion that it meets those 4 criteria. And I do agree with Jack that conditioning an approval on 1 year at the applicant's expense, I'm sure they're going to put quite a bit of money, time, and resources into this, so I don't know that that would be the best way to treat this.
Well, if there's any violations or incidents at the business, and they have a special use permit, then wouldn't that be brought back to us, or the town council, in a violation?
No, once it's out, it's out.
Once you grant a special use permit for them to operate, essentially they're a permitted use. You can place conditions. If they violate the conditions, then there would be a notice of violation issued
Right.
that they're in violation of a
But we can
condition.
attach that to the motion, that if there are violations against the special use permit that we issue, then they would have to be, they would have to come back before the zoning board.
They would have the right to appeal the notice of violation.
Right.
Wouldn't it be better to state it positively, like we were just talking about, there are certain conditions that they are gonna meet in order to open the business? So it's a positive. They have these things they have to do in order to open the business. If they meet those things, they can open the business. If they don't, they can't. So it wouldn't be a violation because they have to meet those things in order to open up. So,
To me, it seems like there's a lot of unanswered questions at the moment, whether between the tank itself, what you exactly need to do between the fire department and OSHA. I think you're best suited to ask to continue this, get all these questions that we have answered, remove the tank, and then come back and deal with this special use permit when you have all the information that we're looking for.
So I'd just like to clarify what exactly would be needed for the board in terms of that material. What items would you like to see if we do choose to make a continuance? Because we have been working very, very hard with the town to try to provide as much information as possible. And I definitely want to make sure everyone's educated. So if there are certain things you'd like to know, I need to just know exactly what they are.
We're very close to closing our doors, so an extra month.
There's 5 points to a special use permit. I don't believe the first 4 are much of an issue. I think it's the fifth one that would keep me up at night. It's the granting of a special use permit will not result in hazardous conditions or conditions inimical to the public health, safety, or welfare. And that's the critical one. That's the one, that's why the questions about the nitrogen, the questions about the fire marshal, that's the one that we really have to be comfortable with to grant it. Because it's not regulated. If you were a tattoo parlor, we could always say, hey, if you violate anything, they're gonna pull your license and you won't be able to operate. Once we issue this, you're gonna be able to operate. Not only can you operate, but then we set a precedence for other people to come into the town and operate. So I think what Mr. Curtin's saying, Mr. Heaney, is, typically you should put up expert testimony. The video was great, the anecdotal information was great, but we have to be very sure that what we grant is safe for Middletown.
So what exact questions would you like answered? What fire codes are
Well,
necessary
just
for storage
your
of liquid
safe-
nitrogen?
That's really up to you to tell us, what's involved in your safety program, what's involved in, when you call the fire department because there's no air in the room. There's things that need to be answered that we're not hearing. So,
Combined with the fact that the tank got installed without a permit.
right. Right now, you've got a violation, so.
Okay, then we
So
will be
we're
asking
trying to-
for continuance, please.
the one thing though that I think is important, earlier in our discussion, we had asked about what timeline were you on? And if you recall, your answer was you didn't know.
Well,
You
I
couldn't-
didn't want to answer for them removing the tank because
We don't want
they
to.
haven't been in contact with us.
Right.
because they're, yeah.
We'd rather not give you false information.
I understand that, and that's a different answer than you gave sooner, that it wasn't at your discretion to remove the tank, so you don't know exactly when. It appears that Mr. Kane has been in contact with him, and it seems like it would happen, I don't know, in a relatively short period of time, I guess is probably the best way of putting it. So that was one of the main concerns of the board. The other thing that you just elaborated on that we didn't know about was the fact that not getting the opportunity to meet these criteria that we're talking about, like as was stated before with the fire department, is gonna put you in a financial strait that you may not be able to overcome as a business. That may not move other folks here on the board, it certainly moves me.
We have expressed that numerous times to the town, to council members, to Mr. Brown, to Mr. Kane. I mean, we were running a very successful business in Newport, and we were hoping to expand and bring more of this clientele and more of this wellness. I mean, we're a veteran-owned small business, and we're trying to bring a holistic wellness center here.
The only thing keeping the doors open right now is,
Our retail
my
sales
paycheck
and
from
our
the-
paychecks.
So was there, and I don't really know if that's for discussion specifically, but is the issue right now with the business, you can't operate at all because,
we're mainly a cryotherapy business.
okay, so this
So
is,
we
this
don't
is
have
a bulk
client-
of your business?
This is our main
this.
revenue source during our peak season.
Okay.
With
Got
the
it.
certification from the fire department, with the fire marshal, I personally, speaking for myself, that would be enough for me to satisfy item number 5, the hazardous conditions, but you don't even have that. So you need to get at least a certification from the Middletown Fire Department stating that this operation with the tank, the way it's dealt, the way it's distributed, the way, the safety factor is adequate for them.
So-
That would be okay with me.
All right. I think they're only gonna come after the fact, like if we built it out, then they'll come and inspect it. So, I mean, that's gonna be a huge risk, for us to invest into that, which we're already pulling more and more debt, and then coming back to you guys and not being approved to run the business.
If I may, the normal procedure would be that a plan be submitted with specifications to the fire marshal and myself. We do a review, make sure that all components can be met and complied with. We would then issue a permit to move forward and do those things. So perhaps a plan being put in place, something on paper,
Right.
drawn to scale, showing where everything is, the clearances from the building, you know, demonstrating that they meet all the requirements under NFPA 1 and the building code. There's gonna be a few minor things about clearances around the building and the building code. I think that at a minimum, if they were able, I'm not saying that they would have to execute all of that before they come back here, but at least have that plan on paper, something that I can give an approval letter for, the fire department can
Right.
give an approval letter for that, and then at least you have something to make a motion with a condition that they follow the plans as presented, because right now, they're in front of you with no documentation whatsoever.
Right.
So we can sit here and say certified by the fire department, but we still don't know what that is. And it would actually be a code compliant, you know, an inspection for code compliance.
Right.
More than a certification. So, but there needs to be some sort of a plan, because if we leave here tonight, that you have to do what the fire marshal says. We really need to know that there's a plan in place, it's been reviewed, it's been compared to what the code requirements are. Okay, you can execute that plan. That's typically how these things go. Someone comes in before the fact, puts a plan in front of you guys and says, here, this is what I want to do. You say, okay, then they execute the plan. The problem here is the cart got put before the horse. But we still need to see if it's viable for them to be able to do so. I was just reading a little bit of the NFPA 101 stuff about clearances from the building, clearances from window openings and everything. They're in a building that the property lines are very close, roughly 7 to 12 feet, I think, just based on a guess, looking at our GIS mapping. So they need to be able to show us a footprint on a site plan saying that we can physically do this. We have the room to make this happen. Because there are, in addition to the clearances and everything for the tanks, they may or may not have enough parking if they have to put the tanks in the parking lot. Now, what do you do with the requirements for parking for the business? So there are other moving parts here. That's why a plan, I think, needs to be presented so that we can say, okay, this works or this doesn't work.
Yeah, there's at least 12 spots, without counting the side of that building.
Right, no, I understand that, but if you can't meet all
I
the
know
clearance
there's a bunch of
requirements for
other
tank
stuff,
storage,
right.
and you're forced to the other side, then I have to look at you and go, you need a variance for parking, and you still can't open your business.
Right.
So I really think it would be in everyone's best interest to have some sort of a plan prepared so that you've got something to act upon.
And that's why I was asking about the schedule. If it's realistic that if all of the requirements for the fire department to at least identify what is required, for you guys to come up with a plan for here's how you expect reasonably to meet those requirements, that you guys feel comfortable that it's within the fiscal constraints of your business to meet those requirements, if that's realistically possibly going to happen between now and our next meeting. Because and I know we're still going to have discussion and open to the public as well, and I don't know if we're up for discussion amongst ourselves now, but I just think, there's too many unknowns, and to rush, in my mind, this, despite the hardships that you guys are under, I know I would have a hard time doing it, but it's still for further discussion.
I agree with Mr. Kurt and Mr. Huntoon. I think the other thing is, how did Cranston approve the site there? Because that'd be interesting to see what they went through. I tried to find it online today.
Newport.
In Newport. Well, Newport, I think they just did it as a retail, so I don't think they have.
Yeah.
So, what we're saying is we're open to what you're doing. We just need to support our decision with facts and with details.
And that's totally fine. I would just really, really like some clarity about what is needed, because we have been to town hall numerous times.
Well,
we have met with numerous town officials, and we take time out of our jobs to do this.
So, you have to be in compliance at the site, first and foremost. That's number one. Number two, as Mr. Kane said, normally, if you look at these files, we have plans of what people are doing, and we can look at it and say, okay. Even a letter from the fire department saying, hey, I met with these people, and they met all of NFP1. So that we don't, right now it's just conjecture, because we leave here and we make a vote, and then the fire marshal says, we talked about it, but we didn't really discuss it. So we have to just make sure that we protect the public.
Yeah, and that's very understandable. It's just, this has been going on since the end of May, so I'm really trying to be proactive and get exactly what the town would like. I'm trying to be compliant and safe. So I just would like to know if those are the details you need. I would like to know exactly what they are.
You mentioned a CE certification for the machine. It would be helpful to have a copy of that. Just to say it has it.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I could pull it up right now.
No, but that's the detail that we need to make a decision.
Are there maintenance requirements on the machine that have to be met every so often in order to make sure the machine is operating properly? I don't need answers right now. I'm just saying those are the types of things that I know I would feel more comfortable.
The more evidence you bring to us on what you're going to be doing,
right,
the better it is for your case.
I'll just give you a for instance. When we look at certain things, a drop of water falls in a building, and we're worried about runoff. Someone tells us exactly every step that drop of water is going to take before it hits the environment. It goes through this, it goes down this, the pipe is this thing, it's in accordance with these certifications. So, for instance, your nitrogen gas is in a tank. The tank is located here. It's got the required setbacks from windows. It's got the required posts around it, the required height. It's sitting on the required foundation for the tank. The tank has got the required number of relief valves that you'd spoke about. Yeah. The gas is brought in using this type of pipe. It's certified to some standard for the pipe. Once it enters the building, we've kind of talked about it, there's sensors. It's literally that type of information that if you were to bring it to us, I'm sure everybody on the board would feel much more comfortable with whatever the certifications and standards that the particular company has who you bought the machine from that's kind of all you're holding up, and the expectation that you're going to meet whatever the fire requirements are. So it's literally that kind of information I know that I think I would like to hear, and I think it would help the other members of the board be able to make a reasoned decision about it, other than it's okay, other people are doing it, and we bought it from a company and they've been doing it great, and we haven't frozen anybody to death yet, or no one's died of asphyxiation. So we're just gonna meet the fire requirements. We'll square some stuff away with the building official where the tanks should be located.
I mean, that's what you do when you, get a restaurant or whatever, and they got nitrogen.
They have nitrogen
tanks.
for beer and
No,
coffee.
I understand, and I'm sure that all the process they go through literally is follow the nitrogen bubble.
They actually have nitrogen, you said it correctly, they have nitrogen tanks. You have liquid nitrogen tanks. There's a big difference.
Okay.
There's a huge difference. And if you want the MSDS sheet, I did my homework, I can give it to you.
That's
I
totally
mean,
fine. We
There-
can,
There's a big, if it was a nitrogen tank we were talking about, it wouldn't be as critical as a liquid nitrogen tank.
Right.
You know, a small amount of liquid nitrogen becomes a large amount of nitrogen gas. Your video said when it's exposed, the reason why the lean frost, the boiling point is negative 135 or something, a hand's at 98.6. You know,
negative 230.
think of how much that's gonna expand when it goes from its liquid state to its gaseous state. So that's why we're concerned. So, and correct, you know, it's CO2, and I've had a long conversation with somebody about CO2 in restaurants. They're putting sensors in rooms now where they have CO2 because they've had people pass out and asphyxiate when they have a CO2 leak, which is also a odorless gas. So those are our concerns. So we can go forward tonight with a vote, or you can continue it to August. It really doesn't matter.
We'll try to continue.
Okay.
I want to be clear with something, though. We hear our cases in order. August 27th, we're going to hear 2 separate cases regarding hotels prior to yours. Just, I want you to be clear about that.
So,
You know, it may not, we're going to have a long meeting, the August 27th meeting.
Be patient.
You have to be patient with it.
it's fine. The whole agenda will be heard though, correct?
No, we're here for 3 hours.
We're here for 3 hours, and then
So-
And what happens if we do not make it on?
You go to the next one.
Or,
yeah,
or they can request a special.
they can, but I don't think they want to spend the money for a special meeting. We've already declined special meetings for the month of August.
If I may, I think the board has the discretion to adjust the agenda if you think
We can put
that
these
you could
people on.
get this one heard, you know what I mean? I think you can give that consideration.
We'll
You
put
have
you
the-
on
you have
agenda
the
the
ability to
hotels.
do that.
Can you ask if there's anybody that wants to speak?
No, we've got to wait until they're finished. Then we'll do it. We got to wait until they've rested their
Because
case.
then we'll know in the
Right.
future if we can just.
We can't do that.
Okay.
So we're gonna adjust the calendar. We'll put you on at the start of the next meeting. I would get in touch with Jack if you have any doubt of what we're looking for.
He can go over the 5.
Oh, we had a meeting.
We've
I
had
guess
multiple
I just
meetings.
didn't understand.
Get together with Jack, get together with the fire marshal.
Yeah.
We have
Get your
multiple
ducks in
times.
a
We
row.
will again. We're good friends at this point.
Uh,
Well, I would just recommend that for myself personally, if you just took the drop of nitrogen from the tank, everything that's from the time it leaves the hose of the truck that fills that tank to the time it's evacuated from the machine and where it goes,
Yeah.
all the safety precautions that are taken, both outside the building and inside the building, and all of that information, as well as a completed checklist and understanding of exactly what the fire department is gonna make you guys, or require you guys to put in place. And if you had that all on paper and were able to hand that to the building inspector before our meeting.
Right.
So
I
it's
actually
presented to
emailed
us ahead of
Marshall
time,
today.
so we do have a chance to look at it. I think it would make the next discussion a lot more fruitful for everybody.
Okay.
Motion to continue this? Make a motion to continue this to
Yep.
the 27th?
Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Motion's made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're gonna continue to
Thank you.
Thank you.
August 27th.
August 27th, and we'll put it at the top of the calendar. We're gonna take a short 5-minute recess.
How's it going? How you doing? Well,
Thank you for clarifying that, Dave. That's exactly what I was thinking as you were going through it. No, they do. You know, I think it's safe, but it's incumbent on them. It's like they should have said, we're following the Utah guidelines. You know, I found Connecticut had a legislative reform. But, they should have followed it. Tom, you need to.
what's that?
You need to come bang the gavel because you're better at it.
I gotta come back? Hey, the way that council's treated me, they don't want me back up there.
Okay, so what's our next hearing for Dave? You only have 3 more. I'll give him 2 more minutes.
Let's see you. The next year.
I mean, I'll show you what I found. I actually found all this stuff that they should have made. Like a legislative plan. There's a little.
They have done that in the past, and someone said that.
Well, that's next month.
But I have something specifically about that.
Because you don't like, can't help it. But he's like,
So you would have thought they would have told me wait, I don't like this stuff. Push down.
How are the,
yeah. Yeah, oh no, it's not small.
I saw a bark around, so I was out walking my dog at 6 o'clock.
But I think this,
I said, have fun to, he goes, oh, I'm not looking forward to this.
it's nothing to do with it.
Ready to go, gentlemen?
No, she has one more.
Oh, so I got that. I got that.
Call the meeting back to order.
Petition of Andrew and Julie Nicoletti for a variance from section 603, 701, and 803 to construct a 7 by 34.5 covered porch, and 2 front dormers with a front yard setback of 15 feet 6 inches, where 25 feet is required, and left yard setback of 12 feet, where 15 feet is required. Said real estate is located at 7 South Crest Street, further identified as Lot 52 on Tax Assessor's Plat 160.
Good evening. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
My name is Andrew Nicoletti. I live at 7 South Crest Street in Middletown.
We're going to do the same. Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
Julie Nicoletti, 7 South Crest Street, Middletown.
Okay, great. Tell us about your petition.
Sure. So we're looking to put 2 front dormers on the front of our cape in Middletown on South Crest, supported by a front farmer's porch. The dormer over the main part of the home will be a bedroom upstairs, and the dormer over the family eat-in area is just to bring in natural light. We are very careful with the design to not exceed the current height of the home. We know how important it is for people's views in that neighborhood. We didn't want to disrupt anybody's views. And we're also going to be very careful, as you can see from the design, not to exceed the current width of the home.
Right, so you're within your setback violation's already there.
That's correct.
Right, so you're building within the current building envelope.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Seems pretty straightforward. Any questions for the petitioner?
Currently, is there a second story on the home right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so all you're really doing is opening it up to a little bit larger footprint upstairs?
That's correct. It's a standard 1950s cape. There's a dormer off the back already that's been pre-existing. We're just going to put a dormer on the front.
So how many square feet does that add to your plan, do you know?
Approximately 200 square feet.
Okay. Have you talked to your neighbors about it? Has anyone said, oh, we hate it?
We have spoken with our neighbors, and the two were certainly aware and fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah, no objections.
Any other questions from the board?
And what's the depth of the porch?
The depth of the porch from the door
Yes.
to front
So
is
you're extending that out, how far?
7.5 feet, sir.
Yeah. So it's not a huge porch where,
No,
you
it's mostly aesthetics, but primarily for support for the
of
dormer.
the upper dormer, right?
Yes,
Of
sir.
the front of the house?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And just to be clear, I went up and down your street and I looked at some of the homes around yours.
Yes.
There's a lot of former capes there that are no longer capes anymore.
Right.
So you are really being judicious and you're staying within your setbacks to do these improvements.
Right. I mean, we've lost some of our water view from some of the larger homes down towards the water, so we're trying to respect our neighbors. And it's a modest, I think I described it as a modest addition. Our 2 daughters are graduating college. We would like for them to have room to come back with significant others and hopefully children someday. That's what the space is for.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions. We'll open up to the public and see if anyone wants to speak for or against it. So you can sit down, we're good.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to either speak for or against the petition? Seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Motion made and second. Discussion?
I see no reason whatsoever. I think the applicant's done a good job doing the best they can with the property they have without minimizing the impact on the environment as well as in the neighborhood. So I'm going to vote in favor of it.
Agree.
I also agree, and I think in terms of the relief that they're seeking, it's definitely the least relief that they could possibly ask for, and it has to do with the existing footprint, which is a unique characteristic of the lot that they're on.
Yeah, I too am going to vote in favor. I appreciate their concern with their neighbors and keeping it to the existing footprint of the building. So I too am going to vote in favor of it. I think it's the least relief necessary for the full enjoyment of the property. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
And our next one is
Petition of ABC Development LLC and the Christian Congregation in the United States for a special use permit from section 602 to allow a place of worship. Said real estate is located at 1077 Aquidneck Avenue, Unit B, and further identified as Lot 33-101, Texas Assessor's Plat 113.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
State your name and address for the record.
John Brooks, Seascape, 47 Seascape Avenue, Middletown.
And you're the owner of the property, correct, Mr.
Yes.
Brooks? And the gentleman to your right, is he going to be
This is Charles, he's representing the tenant.
as a lawyer or just?
Just
No,
answer questions.
Let me swear you in, just, do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
State your name and address for the record.
Charles Misternelli, 43 Victor Street, Middletown.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brooks, tell us about your petition.
I've got a office building on Quinnick Avenue. I had one of the spaces are a retail space, and I was approached by this Christian group. They want to have their services in that space, and it's zoned limited business, which requires a special use permit to have a place of worship within the space. We did a parking assessment, and it seems to comply with the parking assessment. I'm actually 2 spaces short. If all the businesses are fully operational at the same time, so I have room to paint on 2 more parking spaces to comply with that.
Okay.
Seeing that their hours are only Tuesday and Saturday evenings and Sunday mornings, the majority of the businesses are closed at those times. So we're looking at that, there's plenty of parking available.
Okay.
I ran this by the fire department and the building department. I'm gonna have to do a couple of building code renovations. I need to build some firewalls, some minor reconstruction, which is obviously to get my building permit, I'll need to comply with that.
Mr. King, houses of worship, pretty much they can go almost anywhere, correct? I mean,
They're allowed by right in residential zones. In the limited business zone, they require a special use permit, which is,
But I mean, from the federal government.
somewhat odd, I suppose, but
I thought there were some issues, when you look at it federally, that they can pretty much go.
well, the code says what it
Right.
says, and they're here, so I think we'll just.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
On the plans you presented, just so you can clarify for myself, it looks like the building itself has got a couple different areas. You have designated Unit 2A and 2B.
Yes.
On this, are they going to occupy one of those 2 units or both of the units? Or?
There's the one in the center, I believe that would be 2A.
So 2A. So you got
Yeah.
some office, as it's presented here, you have the office, some existing office space that's located to this side.
Right.
So basically, you're going to redefine the space here that's outlined in the checkered area.
Yep.
So they'll take the center section, and another business would have Unit 2.
Correct.
2B then, is that
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
And what's the maximum number of congregants you can have with the space that's going to be made available?
They're proposing 80 occupants.
Okay.
And that's what we're basing our parking and that sort of thing on.
Okay.
But I believe the square footage of the area will allow in excess of 80 people.
And what were the operating hours you mentioned earlier?
Their operating hours are Tuesday and Saturday evenings, 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m., and Sunday mornings, 10:30 to noon.
But that doesn't include the office hours, office space, or it doesn't?
Excuse me?
It has office space, I would assume that the pastor or whomever would occupy office space. Is that?
Would you have anybody?
No, wouldn't use anything, just, we don't only use when there's the service going on.
Okay.
Only 3 times a week.
So you don't need it?
Nothing else.
And where does the church meet currently?
Currently Newport, 5 Marcus Wetland.
Oh,
Newport.
okay.
And how large an area are you in now? Is this going to be an increase in size or a decrease, or is this just, what's the reason for the move?
The same thing, but the only problem is that we have a few issues for parking problems right now. Someone who lives upstairs, they have a skater, so they're always like doing the service, they're like, rolling there. So that kind of takes our, bothers a little bit.
Right.
And it's been like a couple of decades that we're there. So we decided to move out.
Okay. But pretty established as a congregation with your numbers and?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
We're
you're
not the only ones over here. There are 13 around Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Okay.
So like a regional plus other.
Okay, so you'd be closing down the Newport one and coming here as opposed to?
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions I think we're good.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my recommendation is if you make a motion to approve, that you include the requirement that they add the 2 extra
We will.
spaces and the, whatever fire code improvements are
Yeah,
required.
they were gonna add 2 parking spaces, and then, there were some minor adjustments to meet the fire code requirements.
But that will fall under the building code, correct? So we could just need to
Yeah,
put the
that'll all
parking-
happen prior to them getting occupancy so that they can have the use.
So we'll include the parking spaces, because that's zoning.
That's fine.
Open up for public comment?
Yeah, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against the petition? Seeing none, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve with the discussed addition of the 2 parking spots. It seems like it's, the tenants, or the potential tenants have operated, I'm sure well down in Newport for, you said it's been a couple decades, so I think that they probably run a well-established operation, that they know exactly what the requirements are, and they met the requirements. The landlord's comfortable making the adjustments to the property. I don't think the hours in which it'll be operating seem significant to the other businesses in the area.
So your motion contains the 2 parking spots contingent on.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I was just talking about my motion, yes. That would be the motion, yes. Thank you.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Heaney. Now we can have a discussion.
What I just said again. So on
Okay,
vote in
thank
favor.
you. Any other discussion?
Ditto.
I actually went to the property earlier in the week, and, you know, I go down Quinnipiac Avenue on Sundays and at night. I don't think it's gonna create any public nuisance. I think it's a great use of the property. So I'm gonna support it. I think it meets the criteria of the special use permit. Any other discussion?
I agree. I think the last point that I'd make is, in terms of the comprehensive plan, I think the space is existing already. It's underutilized, and this will be obviously a good increase for the town in terms of the use of that space. So I think that in terms of the comprehensive community plan, this is in keeping with that, and I'm also going to support.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Next one is?
And the petition of Philip M. Bonet by their attorney Sean Bouchard for variance from section 603, 701, and 803 to allow the construction of a second floor addition to the existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The northerly side yard setback of 8 feet 8 inches where 15 feet is required, and a front yard setback of 23 8 inches where 25 feet is required. Said real estate is located at 467 Walcott Ave and further identified as lot 212 on tax assessor plat 160.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Sean Bouchard, I'm an attorney from the law offices of Silva, Thomas, Martland, and Offenberg. Here this evening representing Philip Bonet. I'm joined this evening by Spencer McComb from Courtson Design, who can provide some insight into the elevations and architecturals that you've received with your packet, as well as Mr. Bonet and his wife Valerie, who are here, who are also prepared to answer any questions that you might have. In connection with this application, the relief at first seems a little bit much until you realize that the proposal itself is not to increase the footprint of the building that's currently existing on the lot. It is a single-family residence that sits on a 7,000 square foot lot that is currently non-conforming. The proposal is to add a second floor addition directly above what currently exists. There will be no expansion to the footprint, no additional impervious surface that's created. This is simply adding additional space to have a little more room to have family come visit and just general living area on the site. With that, I would ask that Mr. Bonet just come forward to provide a little background as to the ownership of the property and what his intentions are in connection with this petition.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Bonet. Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
Phil Boney. This address is 467 Wolcott.
Okay.
Basically, we bought the home, the second home in 2012. We've been coming as much as we can while still working and living in West Hartford, Connecticut full-time. We love it. So I'm retiring next year. We're looking to spend as much time as we possibly can down here. really pretty much full-time for 3 nice seasons. And we need a little bit more room. We got about 1,200 square feet now, and we want to go up and add master bedroom and a little bit more living room. And we've got 3 children, significant others and husbands. We want them to come visit us, and that's it. We want to be here as much as we can.
So you've owned the home since 2012. This home has not been rented while you were not living there, is that correct?
Correct.
And you have no intention of renting this out when you're not at the residence?
Correct.
Right, so the purpose of this is simply to have additional space. This is not in any way to create a second income or anything like that off the property?
That's correct.
I don't have any further questions for Mr. Bonet unless the board has
Nope.
any. I do have Spencer McComb here who can testify related to the architecturals you have, if you have any. It's always better to have him present in case you need him,
Yes.
so. All right, come forward.
Spencer, raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
Spencer McComb, 42 West Main Road, Middletown.
Mr. McCone, you've appeared before us on numerous occasions as an architectural expert, so thank you.
If you wouldn't mind, could you just run us through what the packet is that that the board's been presented and what the proposal is?
So the first few sheets are just showing you the existing condition drawn to scale, although your packets probably are reduced. And then the last 2 sheets are the elevations of the existing footprint extruded up. So what we've done is keep the footprint as it is, like was spoken about earlier, and put a roof line on this that can house the program that's going into the 2nd floor. Stairway up, master bedroom, and a small area outside of that as well. Some things to notice in here is that the roof lines start very close to the 1st floor ceiling. So it's really a 1.5 story, although this was a very small, almost cottage-like structure to begin with. We're not going up a full 2 stories and then throwing a roof on top of it. So our ridge is at 27. We could have clearly gone all the way up to 35 to make this a much taller structure. But in the wishes of the client and our sensitivity to the neighborhood, trying to keep the roof line as low as possible. So we have 1, more interest in the architecture, and 2, it keeps the whole massing as low as possible. So when we're talking about the least relief necessary, I believe we've done that in this case. I think it's fitting with the neighborhood and the architectural elements. We feel like the 2nd floor roof line and dormers adds to the look of the home, and therein increasing value of the streetscape and even the neighborhood. The major request, or the reason we're here, the majority of this footprint is in the setback. It's basically a 5-foot sliver at the end of the house or the end of the gable. You can imagine that if we tried to design to that, we would be ending the 2nd floor 5 feet from the end of the house. So that would be a very odd structural condition on the 1st floor, and also create a very odd look on the outside of the home. So really it's about the existing footprint that was built inside the setback, or maybe it was built and then zoning was applied to it, but for whatever reason this home's been here since I think the 1920s, and we are just essentially extruding it up vertically, not making it any bigger. Any questions?
Any questions for? I think we're good.
Thank you.
What is it, all bedrooms upstairs?
Yes.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Bouchard. Is there anyone here that would either like to speak for or against the petition? Come forward. Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
State your name and address for the record.
My name is Barry Doyle, the owner of 479 Wolcott, direct abutter.
Okay.
And I am for the Bonies putting forth their addition to the home.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing nobody else, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion made, second.
Second the motion.
Discussion?
I'm gonna vote in favor of the project. The fact that you are only working, you're working within the exact footprint and only going up to 27 feet, I think, from a mass perspective, you're doing what's best for the neighborhood. So I'm gonna vote in favor.
I'm to also vote in favor. I think that one of the big selling points to me was the height that you guys did limit the house to. I believe most, if not all, the houses on the street are about the same height, if not larger. So I appreciate the fact that you're not building a McMansion on a really small property like a lot of property owners are doing in that area. So I'll also plan on voting in favor.
I too am going to vote in favor. Mr. Bouchard asked and answered my question, which I was fearing we were getting another seasonal rental, and that's clearly not the case, or else they would have gone to 35 feet and massive decks. So I too am going to vote in favor of it. I think it's the least relief necessary to make it into a full-time home for a full family. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion
Second.
made, second. Motion made and second. We are adjourned.
Someone's here to speak in favor when they're sitting next to the applicants, as opposed to on the other side of the room.
Right. I was nervous.